Now, the rest of the story. Investigating the life of a frontiersman like Davy Crockett requires the tedious extraction of facts from folklore. You are about to hear a Davy Crockett story that Walt Disney never told. What I am going to tell you is completely true. Born on a mountaintop in Tennessee, the song goes, as far as anybody knows, Davy Crockett never set foot in Tennessee until he was a grown man. North Carolina was his stomping ground, Piedmont, thereabouts. There are records, original documents, relating to Davy Crockett and two of his older sons are still in the files of the old Lincolnton courthouse. But then the call of the wild frontier beckoned, and Davy took his family up the eastern slopes of the Appalachians, down into the promised land on the other side. Now, in those days, you could strike out and claim 400 acres of land just like that. Build a cabin, the estate was yours. Improve the property a little, and a settler could automatically claim an additional 1,000 acres of land adjacent to the original 400. Well, that deal was too good for many to pass up. Legislation established real estate offices throughout the territory. The Indians were bound to peace by a recently signed treaty. So, Davy Crockett felt secure in his new homestead on the frontier. And he would probably have remained there, happily ever after, except for the rest of the story. All at once, the local legislature pulled the rug out from under the settlers. Now suddenly whites were forbidden to own or to survey or even to enter the land within the so-called Indian boundary. Yet speculators had already applied for more than 1 million acres inside the restricted zone. And Davy Crockett and his family already lived inside the restricted zone. The Indians, Creeks, and Cherokees, feeling cheated by the fine print in the treaty they had signed, now learning that countless white men had overtaken the Indians' rightful territory by 1,000-plus acre chunks, were furious. And there was much talk of violence in the red communities, and quickly the talk grew into action, and among those threatened were a dozen settlers near what is now Rogersville, Tennessee, and among those 12 was Davy Crockett. And one night when Davy's son John was away from the homestead, the Indians did attack. Davy and his wife tried to fight them off. She was killed in the raid, and so was he. That's right, Davy Crockett died in an Indian massacre in the spring of 1777. Now, for Davy's son John, who was not at home that night, he lived to tell and to father a son of his own, whom he named after his beloved father, the first of the Crocketts to venture into Tennessee. Our researchers have confirmed irrefutably that it was another Davy Crockett whom you know. I said it was another Davy Crockett whom you have lionized and who died at the Alamo. That was the grandson namesake of the frontiersman that you've just met. Davy's daddy, the Irish settler, who in fact scaled the Appalachians, he left it for posterity to write the rest of the story.